Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 13th. And well, you can see we've gotten a couple little drawdowns here, but once we supported off this green ABM on the short signal that came in and we started our low press to the 0 point, we've kind of held on. We've had a 1.66 and then we've only gone down to 1.4, so the momentum of a decline kind of faded as we just sort of pretty much remained flat, and most of this is probably due to the short-term buyers had been completely reset on this despite the DOC spread. So we got a little bit of short action, which has done exactly that, and it's immediately started to fall. You still need to see that orange dip further and a turnaround of the green at this particular point, but so far it bodes to a little bit softer. Of course, now everyone's screaming, the sky is falling and the earth is over. But while this can deteriorate further, this particular point, short-term buyers are producing enough that should maintain these levels. But it's easy enough because now with the ABM yellow right there at 76, below that you would be out short, and back above you'd be long again. Pretty straightforward. I don't see that as a complicated one, and then you definitely have a clear short if we break below this 64.50 range, which is the green ABM down here, because that's going to then definitely trigger certainly a lot more selling. And again, all goes back to, should that take place right down here, these lows, right around the 25.17 range. For this positive extreme from the extreme histogram. So that's what you would be looking for from that standpoint. NASDAQ, again, now they're starting to look fairly identical, even though the shakeout is very different here. Much higher, stronger from the NASDAQ standpoint. However, the signal identical, except for much weaker from a short standpoint, and the same turnaround from short-term buyers in the steel, producing the exact same effect. This will be a little bit clearer from a retrace standpoint because we know exactly from the breakout what the return levels would be for the NASDAQ. When we turn over to the euro here, we can still see we're upside the top end of our range, which interestingly enough has performed basically as ceiling at this particular point. Still have plenty of positive extremes to go all the way back down to that 111 plus range, 111 and a half. But for now, holding on pretty strong. We don't have a reset or anything, so don't expect this to do much of anything. The fact that you've had long-term buyers as well as midterms holding it up to some degree has been good, and there hasn't been a whole lot of short activity. That could change here as we move to a positive, and particularly if this green fails and we don't stay above the negative 13.5 for red as well. That would create a new round, and then I would look for that low to break out to the downside. So not happened yet. Right now you got rising shakeout and enough of midterm and long-term buyers to keep it, but keep an eye on that steel. If it spikes above 13.5, then fine, should be okay. But if it begins to trail a little bit lower without dipping below, we get caught in that continuation short zone. So that would have some impact on the S&P. Now here, this is one that we expected for a while, this ridiculous run, and it was just absolutely insane to see it go. But like I said, you got to go with it. And then we ended up with the short signal right back here as we popped above the 13.5, significant dip in the shake, and then boom, the floor just drops out as people realize, yes, rates are going to rise, and lo and behold, there is actually some inflation that's starting to creep its way in, go figure. Oil, this hasn't worked its way through the economy yet, but these increased price tags right here are certainly going to have it. And we've got a complete reset here. In fact, way oversold from the short-term buyer standpoint, even though it's way overbought over here in the extended period. Doesn't mean it can't trail for a while. We need to see that shakeout soften, and definitely an orange reset would be appropriate to alleviate some of the stress, but we can already tell from this breakout as well. It's going to be a retrace. It's just not right this second. And gold also suffering. So it's interesting to see both gold and Treasury suffering at the same time, though. We kind of expected this because we've been seeing just a slow creep. It's just been getting back to a 0 point, but no threat because it hasn't even gotten close to breaking up from the previous high pop right here. And it's just a good minimalization at this point. But fair to say that once inflation starts to show itself, this will be a dramatic move. And it'll probably be quick because a lot of times there's a gap up, particularly when it comes to the futures, and then it moves very quickly. And the idea is it limits people's ability to get into those setups. And turning to our 5K chart, you can see we ended up with the early short that came in right through here. Same with the DOC spread on the breakdown, and we still ended up going a little bit higher before it all just started to fall out, and then we did below the 50%. Hovered right around there on the reset, and that caused it to break up just a bit. But really didn't deviate much from its lows throughout most of it. And then usually what you get in that pre-market dip is that an attempt to come back to the highs, and that's exactly what it tried to do. Didn't quite get there, but did it in the pre-market, right over here, to match up this range. And so it filled it back in after shaking out whatever it could from these people. Now you've got back return to the 50%, but you don't have a new buy setup configuration at this particular point. You've got a reset of the steel, but you can see that you had that DOC spread that took place, but it actually begun back over here before the closeout, and then we had the peak above the 13.5, right about where price is right now. So some interesting activity in the after hours, been quite erratic, no clean move, but completely reset of the shakeout, so whatever new setup we get should be pretty clean on it. That's the long and the short of it for now. Quite interesting. Love the fact that we're starting to get a little bit more range in things, but still, that 2600 ES looms is just going to take some kind of catalyst. Nobody still has any clue as to what's going on with tax reform, stuff like that. So that's kind of throwing a monkey wrench in directional mobility. And even if that doesn't happen, that may even give us a little better range, because I really don't really care if it's to the upside or to the downside as long as there's movement. But that'll show up in the daily as well. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk to you later.